Hey everybody, today we're talking about Venom. Let there be carnage! Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent. Today we're talking about Venom, Let There Be Carnage, the most 90s title of a movie ever. But before we get into the review, let me ask you to please do one thing. Please help me and subscribe. Helps me out, helps the channel grow, lets you know when I drop new videos, all that good stuff. Smash that like button, give me a thumbs up. So, feed the algorithm, right? Anyway. Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So, it is Friday. I have the day off. The kids are in school, and I said, fuck it, let's go see Venom Let There Be Carnage. Why did I go during a pandemic? Well, I think this as predicted, the marketing machine, the whole idea of this don't spoil Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and this idea of this end credit scene being mind-blowing and game-changing got my butt to the theater in order to not be spoiled and experience it for myself. At the end of the day, before we get into the spoilers about the movie, is the end credit scene worth going to see in the theater? No. There you go. So, if you don't mind spoiling the end credit scene for yourself and just letting the internet do its thing and spoil it mildly for you over the next 4 or 5 days before they just come out and say it by Tuesday in the headlines, you can stay home and wait for Venom Let There Be Carnage to roll on by on the streaming service of your choice or whatever. If that's what you want to do, if you want to feel safe that way, this movie will wait. You can wait for this movie, absolutely. If you don't want to be spoiled, and if you're comfortable going to a movie theater like myself, I went to an 11:45 showing on a Friday. There were all of 15 people in this IMAX theater. So, and I kept my mask on most of the time. Like, I took 2 sips of my soda throughout the movie, like long sips. I ate some popcorn at the beginning, but had my mask on the entire time. That's what makes me feel comfortable. That's what I did. So your mileage may vary on that. So that would be my recommendation. If you're uncomfortable going to a movie theater, wherever you're at, I live in Florida, so Delta's kind of high, even though we're declining a little bit here in 2021. That's what I did. There you go. So your mileage may vary. But I can just say this end credit scene is not worth putting yourself at risk. I mean, nothing is, but yeah, it's not that mind blowing. I feel like the hit machines are doing something to generate hits. You know, they're gonna get the clicks, they're gonna get all the attention, and really, I feel like this may have been a marketing ploy from the studio because there's nothing in the movie that even sets us up. It's completely random. In fact, my marketing brain wants to say that because this movie was pushed so many times, you know, over an entire year and a half or whatever, that maybe this marketing ploy was thought of during the pandemic to say, all right, we have to put the movie out in the beginning of October of 2021. Shit's still going on. What can we do to get butts in seats? Well, let's add an end credit scene to get people talking. If this was the original plan, then I'll take it all back. But I gotta say, if this is a marketing ploy that came up within the last, 12 to 18 months, then they did a fan-fucking-tastic job working this thing because nobody had any idea that there was a end credit scene that was mind-blowing of the Marvel Universe. It's not really mind-blowing. It's kind of like as expected is kind of what I thought as soon as I saw it. I was excited to see it, but I was like, as expected. So without any spoilers, that's my 2 thoughts on the end credit scene. We've spent 5 minutes talking about it. So, alright. Now, let's get to the rest of the movie. So, if you want to go see the movie and you wanted to know if the end credit scene's worth going to the movie theater for, your mileage may vary. It's up to you. Do what you feel comfortable for. Me, personally, I feel like you could just wait, get spoiled on the internet, and just wait for the movie to come in because there's nothing else, like any other good end credit scene, there's nothing else in the movie that even sets it up or any rhyme or reason for it. So the movie by itself is still pretty good. So let's talk about the movie by itself without the end credit scene, because this really is a whole hour and 30 minutes. It's 90 minutes long. It's an action-packed film, and it moves. And I really liked it. I really liked the first Venom movie. I told Jim last night, we went and saw it together. My buddy Jim, he does guest reviews on this channel every once in a while. And I was like, hey, you want to go see Venom with me? And he said, yeah, let's go. He goes, I haven't seen the first one. And I said, all right, well, you have my account. Dial in and watch the first one because I don't know where it's going to be in the second one, but it's good, dumb fun. And he was texting me this morning as we were like getting ready to leave, saying, I'll meet you there, I said, wasn't it good, dumb fun? He was like, that's the perfect way to put it, and that is the perfect way to put Venom 2, or whatever this is called. Venom Let There Be Carnage, Venom 2 as we'll call it. Good, dumb fun yet again. So, if that's your expectation going in for Venom, I think you'll be perfectly satisfied. It's good, dumb fun. All the things I liked in the first movie, they have more of. I really liked in the first movie the dichotomy between Venom, the symbiote, and Eddie Brock, and all the little conversations they have. They have much more of that here in this film. You get an entire movie of it. And if you didn't like that part, then you probably might not like this movie because there's a whole lot of it. But for me, that was the twist on Venom for a movie that made it less dark and more PG-13 and just more enjoyable to feel like, oh, I can enjoy this symbiote story without Spider-Man involved. So the twist that they had in the first film to make you, attracted to watch Venom without being in the Spider-Man universe, there's more of that here, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I gotta say that I really like Tom Hardy in this role. I liked him in the last one. I do think he's doing a great job. It's fun to hear Venom's voice with the little modulation they have on it, and you can hear like tinges of Bane a little bit. And even when he's doing his Eddie Brock voice, you can hear tinges of Bane. So it's kind of fun to hear, but it's not that similar at all. Like the tone is very different, their echo is very different, but you can hear a little bit of it, and I think that's kind of fun when you're listening, like, oh yeah, that's Bane, and even it never takes you out of the movie, and I think that shows that they did a good job of determining this Venom voice. Michelle Williams returns in this movie as Anne, and she's in a significant portion of the movie. I really like her as this character. It's kind of weird to see Michelle Williams in this like fun comic book movie. The fact that she came back, A+. There's just a whole lot of fun with her talking to Eddie Brock and being like, is Venom with you? And he's like, no, there's no Venom here. And then by the end of the scene, she leans over and goes, hey, you in there, take care of him. Or, like, just the whole thing that she knows, even though he's lying and saying, he's not alive, he's dead, he's gone. She's like, I know what's really going on. And the fact that Venom, the symbiote, is in love with Anne just as much as Eddie is and is trying to help Eddie and whispering in his ear. Not really whispering, he can't whisper, but, just kiss her, do this, do that. It's just so much fun to watch this. Just a symbiote comedy, basically, I thought hit at all levels. If you really liked it from the first movie, you're going to like the symbiote comedy here in the second film. What doesn't work? The villains! Surprise, surprise. That a PG-13 movie entitled Let There Be Carnage, about a symbiote called Carnage who inhabits a serial killer by the name of Cletus Cassidy, cannot be what you want it to be. It is what it is. Like, there's a lot of mayhem, there's a lot of destruction, there's not a whole lot of body parts. It is a PG-13 movie, and I've seen some things where they were saying, like, I was surprised at how much they got away with, and I'm like, no, not really. The last movie had Venom biting heads and stuff like that, and they got away with a little bit, and they kind of have that same amount is here in this film, so they didn't really amp it up a bit, and I think because they didn't have any, like, aliens to bite off. Like, if there was an alien invasion with Carnage, you would have seen Carnage biting off alien heads or beheading people a whole lot more than you would have here, but because they're humans and they have red blood, you're not going to see that. But if they had green blood, you would have saw a whole lot more of it. If you want to know what I'm talking about, just go watch any of the Lord of the Rings movies. They're very bloody because they all have green or black blood, and therefore it doesn't count, right? That violence doesn't count in terms of the MPA who rates all the films. So that's not really there. I'm not going to hold that against it. What doesn't work here is Cletus Cassidy himself. Now, hiring Woody Harrelson to play a serial killer, a great idea. And everybody was real excited about him when he showed up at the end of Venom 1. In fact, they were so banking on this movie or getting a sequel that it wasn't even an end credit scene. It was the end scene of the film before they rolled to credits. He gets rid of the terrible wig he had, which was based off his first appearance, I'm sure. And he still gets a terrible haircut. In fact, the worst thing about this movie is all the haircuts. We got to say that for everybody. All the wigs are still pretty ugly, even if they're a little bit better than the last movie. Tom Hardy's haircut's still bad. The detective's haircut is terrible. And the wig they put on Woody Harrelson, both of them are pretty good, but I would say that the second haircut he ends up with is really, really bad. So let's just say that. But at the end of the day, they're making Cletus Kasady this serial killer, and the fun part about Cletus Kasady in the comics is that him and Carnage bond instantly. They're all about killing, they're all about destruction, they're just there for mayhem, they don't care about anything, they're just there to entertain themselves, and the way that they do that is by killing people. In fact, they don't really have like this duality the same way that Venom does. This movie doesn't set that up, it doesn't execute on that theory. It tries to take Cletus Kasady and make him relatable. And that's where this movie goes wrong. If you want to say, we have Cletus Kasady and we have Scream, and we're going to make them relatable, we're going to have them as a romance thing, as this weird twisted romance, I was on board with that. It's fine. It wasn't until the end of the movie where Cletus Kasady basically starts crying, about his broken childhood, about his grandma, his mom, his dad that, beat on him, and that's why he's all fucked up, that I was like, that's really not who the character was. Like, Cletus Kasady was a full-born serial killer. He had no empathy whatsoever. He is a psychopath. This Cletus Kasady has some empathy, some sympathy. Like, he's not a full-blown psychopath in that way that he is in the comics, or even like the 90s cartoon. Cletus Kasady was fucking terrifying. Here, not so much. Here, they make him more relatable, and they're like, there's a romance thing, so that, Shriek has this voice power. She's like Scream, or I don't know. She has a sonic scream like Banshee from the X-Men or whatever, and that thing hurts symbiotes. So Cletus loves her, and then the Carnage symbiote does not. So you have this battle of Cletus and the Carnage symbiote at the end scene where they're battling Venom as well after their marriage ceremony or whatever, and they're just going at each other. And the Carnage symbiote wants to kill his girlfriend, he doesn't want it to, so he's battling himself. And that whole Carnage battling himself never exists in the comics. This is something that's brand new that they injected into the film to try and make him a more sympathetic villain, even though it totally shouldn't be there, because all it does is make him seem like a giant pussy, right? Like, let's just say it. They say it in the movie. That's one of the funnier lines. When the Asian, oh gosh, I want to say Mrs. Chang. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. But they just make him into like a giant crybaby, and that's not entertaining at all. And that's not what I wanted from this film. Like, even though it wasn't PG-13, I knew that they weren't going to make it very bloody or very violent. But I still wanted him to be a psychopath. And he's not that in the film, and that just like bumps it down a notch for me. It is still a CGI fest at the end of the third act. Like, you could look at this third act and the third act of the first one and go, well, there's not that much difference here, because you have a black symbiote fighting a silver or gray symbiote in the first movie, and then you have a black symbiote fighting a red symbiote at the end of the second movie. And they're both set at night, and they're both dimly lit, so can you tell who's doing what to each other? Yes or no. I think the thing that Andy Serkis, who directed this film, he's of Lord of the Rings and Planet of the Apes fame, legendary not voice actor, but motion capture actor. He's also a great actor in his own right. The thing that he brought to it was that he entered the conflict, with the bell and the screams. It made the symbiotes deactivate a little bit, so that when you had two humans fighting each other, and then their symbiotes would activate, and then they got a little bigger, and then they got a little smaller, then they got a little bigger. That made that fight a little bit more interesting than the entire CGI fest we had at the end of the first movie, which I thought was a little bit boring, even though I did enjoy the movie. So I think that's where this movie faults, right? Like, it just, making Cletus Kasady this sympathetic figure, I think, is a bad move, and it took the fun out of Carnage, and the fact that they didn't marry those two together, like the whole plot revolving around them not being not the plot, but you know, the end thing being like, hey, Venom, they're not a match, we are. Like, that's from a comics perspective, that's bullshit. From a movie perspective, sure, like there's a battle there. They don't want the same thing. So I guess that works in terms of the movie frame. But from a comics perspective, to make them not a match, like, that was the weird part about Carnage, was that he was an instant match for this little sliver of a symbiote thing that infected him, this child of Venom. So it was that they were like more powerful than Venom because they were an instant match, because they were both out to kill everything. So, you know, that really didn't work for me. But I did have fun with the movie. I think the overall, what tied the movie together for me was the humor between Eddie Brock and Venom the symbiote, and having that go all the way from the beginning to the end of the film really did, like, that was the highlight for me. Anytime they were talking to each other, anytime they were arguing was a big highlight, and that brought the film together for me, that I could just recommend it to anybody and say it's good, dumb fun, even if it does, you know, stray from the comics. We're not going to try and not to hold that against it, but they do so much work in the beginning of the movie trying to set up Cletus Cassidy as this serial killer. Like, there's a beach with, I don't know, 10s or 20s of bodies or something that they find in the middle of the movie. They then undercut all that threat because of this romance plot that they have to execute on at the very end. Like, it's fine if you want to marry a crazy person. I could see the Joker, like, the Joker's kind of done that in some comics before too. Just wanted to hold an event just to hold an event, but he's not really, like, torn up when somebody gets hurt the way that Cletus Cassidy is in this film. So am I complaining they made a character more human? Sure. I think that's allowed. He's supposed to be a psychopath. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Venom. Let There Be Carnage. I think overall it is still a good, dumb fun. And if you're comfortable going to see a good, dumb fun movie in the theaters right now, you can go. Don't go just for the end credit scene. Go ahead and spoil yourself if you don't feel comfortable. Honestly, the end credit scene's not that big a deal, although it is interesting that they did it that way. So there's my review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Thank you for watching. Let me know down below what you thought overall of the movie, and we will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.